Welcome, chocolate lovers of all flavors, to the Chocolate Life Live. Today, I'm happy to say that my guest is Alejandro Campos of Wolter Chocolates down in Comalcalco, Tabasco, Mexico. And we'll come back with Alejandro on the other side of the intro video. And Alex, welcome to the Chocolate Life Live. You're currently in Comalcalco, Tabasco, Mexico. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and Wolter Chocolates?
Hi, Clay. Hi, everybody. Well, yes, indeed. We are here in Tabasco, in Mexico, in the south of Mexico, near the border with Guatemala. And well, Wolter Chocolates was founded in 1958 by a German immigrant. His name was Otto Wolter Heyer. So he began with this chocolate factory, and now we are the third generation, my wife and me, since 1999, and now we are in the management of the chocolate factory.
So over the course of the last 60 years now, I was born in the year the company was founded. So over the course of the last 60 years, right, now my understanding is that Otto was a pharmacist, and so he got into growing cacao and making chocolate for its medicinal properties. But yes. How has the farm changed? How has the business changed over the course of the last 60 years, from the origination to the work that you're doing, raising awareness of Mexican cocoa and Mexican chocolate overseas?
Yeah, at the beginning, Dr. Wolter was working with the cacao pods, with the cacao plantation, and after that, he began to make some industrial products like cacao paste or cacao liquor, and he sold a lot of this product in Mexico City to big factories, chocolate factories. In addition to that, he began to make some products to the final consumer, like this round tablet Mexican chocolate, to do it with hot milk, and some of cacao powder for the final consumer, and that's it. When he passed away in 1982, the second generation, my mother-in-law took the management of this chocolate factory, and she what she did is to conserve, to keep the factory, because I don't know, but there was a lot of economical crisis in Mexico during this period. But the sales went down very in this period of time. So in 1999, my wife and me, we took the administration, the management of this brand. And what we saw is that we had a very, very good products like this cacao powder and like this metate chocolate, Mexican style, but we could do more than just keep these recipes or these products. We realized that we had we have 26 hectares. I don't know in acres how many acres are, but
about 70.
Okay, about 70 acres of cacao plantation in in the downtown of Comalcalco, not by the in the downtown of Comalcalco. So this is a property about 150 acres, and 26 hectares of cacao. So we ask ourselves, why don't we do the kind of chocolate that is produced in Europe? This the fine chocolate, the bars, the couvertures. Okay, because here in Mexico, we used to drink chocolate more than eat chocolate. But there's a culture that it's changing, and we are looking for new products, fine and natural products, and better products. So we learned and we launched this line of product in 2014.
So if I can, just really quickly, I mean, you and I first met at the Festival del Chocolate in Villahermosa in 2015. I believe that it may have been Elisa Montiel Velti who introduced me to you, and you invited me down to participate in that festival, and that we began our working relationship, after being able to see just the festival. I mean, the largest chocolate festival in the world that nobody has ever heard about. It takes place in Villahermosa. I mean, there is, cacao and chocolate are such an important aspect of the culture of Mexico. And yet very few people outside of Mexico know anything about that rich tradition, other than what we hear in the history book about Moctezuma and, drinking 50 goblets of foam. And, we don't know much about that cultural history. And so one of the things, that was interesting to me about visiting Hacienda La Luz, which is the name of your house, your hacienda, your farm, down in Comalcalco, is that there's an opportunity then and now, I mean, because it is a tourist destination, for people to be able to connect to a bit of that history and a bit of that tradition. And, whether it is to walk through the farm and get an overview of the natural history, perhaps to sit down at an authentic meal. I mean, the hacienda is how old? And it's been, it's just, and not only that, but, there is a collection of machinery because, Otto Wolter was a true mechanic geek when it came to making this stuff. And, there's just, oh my gosh, there's an old winnower, and, it's amazing. So how do you today, I think, you as a representative of the larger community, how do you today sort of balance with one foot in 500 years of history and another foot looking forward to, for example, selling your products into Europe? I mean, where is, is this something that is generally understood by the people in Tabasco? Do they not understand it? How do they accept it?
Okay, so there are three questions here. First of all, we met in 2014 in Salon du Chocolat
in Paris, right? Okay.
There.
All right. Okay.
After that, we met in New York City in the FCIA in 2015 when you introduced me Babani.
I must be getting old. My memory is like, okay, all right. I now that you mention it, I do remember those things. Yes.
By that time, we had here teaching us the secrets of the fine chocolate to this chef Kim Capdevila, to the Kim. So we were testing the machines and testing our procedures, and he said to us, "Okay, you must buy two more machines because I don't see here these machines to do this kind of chocolate that you want to." So Elisa told us, "Okay, ask Clay. He's an expert about this kind
now,
of."
and you know Elisa because of her connection with Kim Capdevila, as I remember.
Yes,
Is that
yes,
correct? Okay,
yes.
because fine, all right.
Elisa was the connection between us, between Kim, you, and me. So I asked you by a phone. I called you and I asked you, "Okay, Clay, Kim Capdevila says that I need two machines." So you said, "Okay, please describe me and send me the photos of the machines you have." And actually, you say, "Actually, yes. You don't have these machines, but we can discuss these machines, these procedures in New York next week, because the next week it was in June of 2015." So I went there to the FCIA conferences, and I met you there, and you introduced us to Babani. Babani was selling these
Melangers.
the melangers. So, well, that's the beginning of our relationship.
Okay.
After that, we met in Paris again, and then in here in Tabasco. The second question is about the history of the cacao and chocolate that we have, and we are related to with our culture, our tradition, our history. And well, here in Tabasco is a little state, not only the sauce, no? It's a little state in the south of Mexico, between Veracruz and Campeche. We are in the north of Chiapas. So here in Tabasco, we had three main pre-Hispanic cultures: Olmec culture, Mayan culture, and Aztec culture. So the Olmecs, they had the cacao as a fruit, and they began these plantations, and they began to make some things with the cacao seeds. But the Mayan people was people who made a lot of beverages. And the Aztec people elevate or put this seed to the gods' food, to the money, and that is the time where the people from Spain arrived in Mexico with the Aztecs. So at that time, the cacao was a very precious seed, not only but because it worth money, but it was very for it's a food for energy and to work and to fight and for the war and the economic things. It was very good. And here in Tabasco, we had several pre-Hispanic beverages. So we don't use the cacao only to make chocolate, but to make pozol, tascalate, and a lot of pre-Hispanic beverage that nowadays the people is still drinking. So that is
well. And if I can, I think that one of the things that people may not understand, is that unlike many other countries in the world, right?
Yeah.
In Mexico, in Tabasco, because Tabasco produces most of the cocoa that is grown in Mexico, many people have small backyard farms.
Yes.
And what they will do is they will collect the wet cacao, and then they will go through a process which is generally called lavado. They will wash the pulp
Yeah.
off of the cacao and set it out to dry, right? And
Yes.
then, so it's unfermented, and that they will roast and grind that, and then mix it with water and sugar and ground corn, right?
Yeah.
And it's part of the roadside stand culture. It's part of the everyday culture. It's not, it's not something that we do once in a while. It's not a special beverage, but it is interwoven into the cultural fabric of the community in ways that are unique. I mean, I haven't been to Guatemala yet, but I've been to Nicaragua. I've been to Belize. I've been to a number of other countries. I saw similar usages in Belize, but that would be to be expected because of the heavy Mayan influence there, right? But one of the things that really interests me is the fact that this lavado cocoa, so washed and unfermented, is what the local culture expects. It is the flavor of chocolate. And so when we think about, for example, Chocolates Mayordomo in Oaxaca, they're bringing in this lavado cocoa
Yes.
from Tabasco. But historically, I think what that means is that there is this understanding of what the flavor of cocoa and chocolate are, right? And every culture says we make the world's best. We have the world's best cocoa. We make the world's best chocolate, and that includes every Tabasqueño I ever spoke with. Right?
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't matter. Ours is the best. And in one respect, from the history of the genetics, that is certainly very true. I mean, you're looking at the place possibly where Criollo, first came into being, these breeding projects of the Olmecs. And yet, the cultural expectation of flavor is so very, very different. And for you, I mean, this challenge, this cultural background of what cocoa and chocolate are, right? In the local community, as opposed to what it is that we might expect in America or we might expect in Europe. How difficult is that for you to navigate?
Yes. Okay. That's the third question. But I'm still the second one because
Okay.
this internal market makes that the price of the cacao seed is expensive. It's not cheap. So that's the reason what a local price is the similar with the fine cacao seed in for Europe. So you have this internal demand, so that rises the price here in Tabasco or in Mexico. So it's kind of difficult to find some cacao producers that wants to export cacao to Europe because the price is similar or it's the same. So there are very few producers, but they get more, a little bit more money for the local price, maybe $5, $6 until like Doña Clarita, $11 or something like that. But that's very that's not a common thing. So the third question is that, well, we were by 5 years working with this kind of chocolate, the round tablets and the cacao powder. There's a local beverage here that it's made with oats, yes, and we began to produce that product, and we commercialize these products in our local markets here in Tabasco or in another states near to us. But we had the opportunity several times to go to Europe, to the Salon du Chocolat in Paris, and to Belgium. And we were in Bruges. It's Bruges. And One day we were walking around a lot of chocolate boutiques, and I started marketing. So I was looking at the big lines of people waiting for the chocolatier to put the truffles, the bonbons there. And if you want to buy a box with 20, 24, it's like, well, in pesos, 1,000 pesos, 1,000 pesos or 2,000 pesos, a lot of money for us to buy only chocolates. But I realized that there's a lot of people, many of them European people or Mexican people, that appreciate this kind of chocolate, but there, not here in Mexico, there in Europe. So if you are in Europe, you do buy this kind of chocolate, not here. Here you expect that the chocolate, instead of 1,000 pesos, you spend 10 or 20 pesos, not 2,000 pesos. So I asked myself, well, maybe there's a little market, there's a little bunch of people in Mexico that wants to taste wine and champagne and this kind of chocolates. And maybe there is no any company in Mexico attacking or making this kind of chocolate. So it's an opportunity. It's a market opportunity. I saw that. Well, when I met you, do you remember that we bought only 2 kilos or 5 kilos Melanger, a little one like this, in the FCIA? That's our one of the machines that we were looking for to make this chocolate, because we didn't have the machines to reduce the microns, and because we only made the Mexican style chocolate that is it's the microns are big.
It's coarse.
Yes, coarse. It's not creamy or something like that. So we began to make some market tests in here in Tabasco and Mexico, and they said, "Ah, it's okay. It's chocolate, and that's it." So I said, "No, here in Mexico, we don't appreciate this kind of chocolate." The strategy is upside down. We must send first in Europe, because if you sell this chocolate in Europe, the Mexican people say, "Oh, that's a very good chocolate, so I can pay for that." And that's the reason that we are now we had 8 times that we are in the Salon de Chocolat or in New York in the fancy food expo there.
Right.
And
you've also been very successful at the international awards. I mean, here's a bar,
yeah.
okay, Memoria Mexicanas, and it has won a silver in the 2018 Chocolate Awards in the Americas round.
Yeah, that's an idea that you told us. Why don't you participate in the International Chocolate Awards? Because there's a lot of the best chocolatiers in the world participates there. So in the 2016, that's the first time that we were participating, and now we have 60 prizes, and we are the Mexican chocolate company most awarded, and that opens the European market, and at the same time, that opens the internal market, the Mexican market.
So in that journey, right? So you grew up consuming Mexican style chocolate, and you had this epiphany, right? You had this moment where you said, what I need to do is I need to make chocolate that will appeal to Europeans. And if Europeans accept it, if I can sell it in Paris, that will make it easier for me to sell it in Mexico City. For you, right, and the team that you assembled to do this, what was the hardest aspect of getting the product? Let's not talk about the marketing and packaging, but what's the hardest part of making a product that would be able to compete in the European market?
I guess is the fermentation, the protocols, and that's the reason we call soy because of you, because you connect with soy, and soy was here by 4 or 5 times teaching us how to make these protocols in a right way. And the other is, the best friend of a cacao plantation is the heat and the humidity. And the worst enemy of the chocolate is the heat and the humidity. So if we decided to put this chocolate factory in the middle of a cacao plantation in a tropical forest, like is Tabasco, so for us it's very difficult to control the humidity and the heat. So we have special rooms with the air conditioner all day long, 24 hours a day, and these humidity machines that captures the humidity and put off the factory. If you don't take care about that, the humidity is inside the chocolate, and the chocolate begins to put not creamy or fluid, but course also very, very, very heavy.
Well, I want to come back to that in just a second, but I want to take a quick break to reset the room. First thing I would like to do is I would like to say hello to Roberto Reta, who is dialing in from Playa del Carmen in Cancun, or in
near Cancun, yes.
But it is on Quintana Roo. Is that correct?
Riviera Maya.
I'm trying to. I'm sorry.
Riviera Maya.
Riviera Maya. So Roberto, thank you very much. And also we have from Chiapas, the Hacienda Napana, we have Rafael and Elena who are checking in. So thank you very, very much. And just to let everyone know, Roberto gives us a little smiley face back. Thank you very much. And just if you are in the room, if you have a question for Alejandro, you have a comment that you'd like to make, please type it into the comments and we'll be able to get it up onto the screen. I'd also like to mention that this is currently the homepage of TheChocolateLife.com. You can go to TheChocolateLife.com and you can find on this story, which is the calendar, you'll find all of the upcoming live streams that we've got going, as well as an archive of all of the previous streams. So if you want to catch up, you can catch up and figure out what we've done here on The Chocolate Life Live. I'm also going to point you that I do run an Instagram channel, and you can go there and sign into the Instagram channel, follow me. And what I'd like to do, if I can, Alejandro, is this is a really unusual picture, right? It was taken by our mutual friend, Oscar Romero of Pixlan, who is in Puebla, because we hired him to document part of the project that we're working on. But when people think about the genetic diversity of an area, right? I mean, every single one of these pods represents a different variety of cocoa. And I believe all of these were collected within an hour or two of Comalcalco. I mean, so this just represents a lot of really, really interesting potential. How much of this potential, right, have you been able to explore as a chocolate maker? I mean, it excites you, it frightens you. I mean, it's a pretty amazing. I mean, a lot of people would go, "Oh, I would give anything to be able to have access to all of this cocoa." What can you tell us about some of these things?
Okay, the first thing that we make when we choose a cacao pod is here in Tabasco. There's a lot of cacao plantations that are very tiny, that are very small. So maybe some of these cacaos are from a plantation that only have one hectare, 2 acres, and it's difficult for us to get this cacao. Now, in the INIFAP, this Cacao Research Institute in Tabasco, we asked them what are the cacaos that they spread, or they are or that here in Tabasco we are growing because we have a lot of varieties, and then we choose three of them. We choose three of them, and we make a lot of tastings with these cacaos, because we cannot choose all the cacaos, because we don't have enough time to develop all the chocolate. So what we are making is to invite people to come here to choose these cacaos, to experiment, to test, and to taste these cacaos, because they are very interesting. But maybe we don't have enough to make a big production, or maybe they seem to be different, but when you taste them, it's the flavor is very similar. So we choose only 3 or 4. I don't remember. Yeah, three. One of Carmelo, one of the La Sierra near Teapa, near Napaná, and the cacao that we have in the Hacienda La Luz, and that's the cacao. And San Luis, Finca San Luis also. So that's the cacao that we are working with.
Right. So before we jump into the photo that we're looking at right now, I want to say hello to Juan Gonzalez of the Mexican Arabica Bean Company. So Juan is an importer and distributor of coffee and cocoa up in Toronto. So hey, Juan, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us the shout out back. I hope it's warmer in Toronto than it's been here in New York. It's been pretty crazy. So Carmelo is probably both the most famous and the most infamous cocoa in all of Tabasco.
Yes.
So it is a trademark name. Carmelo is owned by the owners of the Rancho La Jolla, right, which is actually they're not far from where you are located in Comalcalco. And what's interesting here is that for many, many years, this was thought to be a 100% Criollo cacao. And you mentioned Doña Clarita Echeverria, who went to the Salon during one of the early Cocoa of Excellence Awards and managed to convince Pierre Marcolini to spend $11 per kilogram, right, for a couple of sacks of cocoa. Can you tell me, what, I mean, my understanding, please correct me, is that what this did is it said to the farmers that all of the cocoa we grow in Tabasco should be worth $11 a kilogram, right?
Well,
or at least all of the Carmelo that we grow, all of the C1, right?
Yes, there's a lot of people that about these plants of Carmelo and grow, and there's a lot of Carmelo farms now here in Tabasco, and the most of them think that they can sell this cacao at that price. Now I think that they just realize that it isn't like this, but there are a lot of market that actually they pay more than the common cacao that we have. So that what they don't know is that in this research institute, INIFAP, they have 20 more almendra blanca, white seed cacaos growing there. Not only Carmelo. The Carmelo is the most famous because of the Doña Clarita, because of the price, but it's not the only one, and maybe it's not the better one. So
So if people are paying close attention, well, they'll notice in the row of cut seeds that this is primarily a white bean. So might be in the class of Porcelano when it's fresh. I mean, it's really, really beautiful and pale white when it's fresh. But on the left-hand side, you'll notice two seeds cut open, and they've got black centers. And
yes.
I had an opportunity during a Penn State Science of Chocolate conference to show these to some researchers, including Juan Carlos Montemayor, and I said, "Hey, what is this?" Right? And at that same conference, there were some people from INIFAP who presented some research that actually had done some genetic analysis of this Carmelo that said it was only 60% Criollo parentage and 40% Forastero parentage. And I think that the consensus is these spots, which sometimes are, actually round circles, right? And so we started calling these scenes pintos, right? Anyone that had this, but I think Elisa and I started calling them pintos. But this might be a representation. This might be an expression of the Forastero parentage, depending upon how that particular pod got pollinated. And it points to the fact that you could have a real good, phenotypic understanding. Here's the shape of the pod. Here's the color of the pod, right? And go, I think I know what the variety is, right? But what it requires is a real, deep genetic analysis to understand what the true parentage is. Because as it turns out, I mean, Alejandro, one of the things you mentioned that you needed to work on fermentation protocols, right? Because if this is a 100% Criollo, right, you'd want to ferment it differently than if it had 40% Forastero parentage, right? Yeah. And one of the things that has happened is that by actually going from roughly a 3-day, which is the traditional fermentation, into longer, roughly 4 days. I forget when the turns are and how many there are, but this is the duration. You actually can improve the quality. They become less acidic, right? Which is one of the drawbacks of this particular cacao. But it was really quite a fabulous learning experience for me to be able to go do that. And I have some other pictures that I'd like to share over the course of that. Before we get into those, Lynn, who's up in Canada, Lynn Lockwood, says she remembers having a conversation with you, Alejandro, when you were in London at the Salon du Chocolat, the chocolate show in London. And you were talking about the importance of the awards that you had. So over the course of the last couple of years, Mexico has been facing the same challenges that the rest of it have been changing. How have you seen, how have you seen your business affected? And, maybe the question is, I don't know, Lynn, and perhaps you'll want to clarify, how the focus on going to Europe, right? How has it affected your business, not only in Europe, but back in Mexico, right? Is this, I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to try to answer Lynn's question for her or ask it for her.
For the final consumers, we have a lot of success. The final consumers, as a Mexican, you feel so proud of the awards, the prizes, and the fact that we are selling in Europe. So when you mention that in our social web and this, and we promote the chocolate, the Mexican chocolate, selling in Europe or in United States, we because I have to say we feel so proud of that, and we are in the best mood to taste this chocolate. But you remember we launched in 2019 our couvertures for professional, for chefs. That's another story there. The Mexican chefs say that first of all they use European chocolate, Valrhona, Barricale, Del Colade, or South American chocolate like República del Cacao or Luker or something like that, because there's no a Mexican brand that fills their need of quality. So I have to explain them that we are selling to a three-star Michelin chef in France. So we have to make a lot of things or to fill a lot of conditions to sell not only once but through 4 years in the north of France. So we have really a chocolate that the quality is like Barona or more than, or more, but I have to ask them, please prove a taste our chocolate. And it's difficult for us in that market.
Is that a harder sell to Mexican chefs? I mean, so I'm sitting here in the United States and I'm going, okay, I've got, a product which is made by a well-known, European manufacturer, and the cocoa beans are coming from Ecuador and Peru. They're getting on a ship and, they're going through, the whatever the logistics process is. And we don't know how many times they change hands, and we don't know who puts their fingers in them and all that other kind of stuff. But you're sitting there in Tabasco and your supply chain, is really short. I mean, I can drive to Teapa, in an hour, and I've been there, right? And I can, drive to Pichucalco, and, I can go and visit Napana. I've been to all of these places. So when we talk about quote unquote direct trade, right? And we talk about, that kind of visibility, which I think is a better word than transparency. I like visibility into the supply chain. Do you find that people outside Mexico respond to that differently from people inside? Do Mexican chefs care about that, while European and Americans might think
in
it?
some
Think
products, in some products, yes. I always, when I make these speeches with a lot of people, I said the story that we are telling about the chocolate is similar at the Mexican wine, but we are 30 years late. So if 30 years ago, if you ask a Mexican to try a French wine glass or Mexican wine glass, we don't have to think more. No, the French, because the Mexican wine, no, it's
what is Mexican wine, right?
Yes, and no, it's and you don't give the Mexican wine even an opportunity, a chance to taste, because it's French. So that's the yes, that is the level with the chocolate right now. So through 30 years, a lot of wine Mexican companies have changed this mentality in the consumers. That's the reason that we, as Wolter Chocolate, ask a lot of Mexican companies of fine chocolate Mexican company to grow, to participate, to go to participate in the awards, because this change of mind, we cannot make it alone. We must be a group of Mexican chocolates, but we are working on it.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand. So what I want to do is give people a chance to think about this and to ask some questions, to get some questions. But I have a treat. So for those of you who have followed me for quite some time, you may know that I did a 20th anniversary tasting back in May. And I was able to get from you, Alejandro, this bar, right? Which is called Mexican Memories, Memoria Mexicanas. And it's part of your Ketsale line. So can you explain what Ketsale is and how it fits into the Wolter family of brands.
Yes, the first time when we were in Salon du Chocolat promoting this chocolate, the consumers tell us, "Oh, I don't understand if you are German in Mexico or Mexico in Germany or Mexican in Germany," or, well, we had to explain that, and we had to explain also the Tabasco state thing, because at the beginning they thought that our chocolate was spicy, and a lot of people, no, I don't want to taste this chocolate, and the people tasting the chocolate says, no, it's not so spicy, no, because it wasn't spicy. We were from Tabasco state, but okay, so we raised the Tabasco name and we put Mexico, so you don't have to explain Mexico. And
you might not have to explain Mexico.
No, but Tabasco, yes, because
I understand.
From Tabasco. So, and the other was the brand Wolter. So I don't want to explain or to confuse the consumer if we are Germans in Mexico or we are Mexicans in Germany. This chocolate's made where. So we decided to launch this brand, Ketsale. Ketsale, you know, the Ketsale birds, the feathers of the Ketsale birds were used to put in the big penachos. I don't know this
headdress.
Okay.
Headdress.
Okay. In the emperors. So it's the same as the jewels of the crown. You know that? So it was, these feathers was very important. So what we are trying to tell the consumer is that by tasting our chocolates, it's not only a piece of chocolate, it's a piece of our brand, it's a piece of our land, our history, our culture, our tradition. It's not only chocolate, but it's our.
And that's the feather in the mold.
Yeah, that's a feather. Yeah.
Okay. Right. I apologize for it not being perfect, but it's been in storage since May. So this bar is really interesting to me. I mean, you know, you've got a bar, and it, you know, one of your approaches to flavoring for this line is to use, you know, very traditional flavors.
Yes.
So or unconventional flavorings. There's a bar that has Chiquitana ants in it.
Yeah.
And so we think about chocolate-covered grasshoppers and we think about chocolate-covered ants. Chiquitana ants and chocolate, if you haven't tried it, give it a try. It's just so that you can say you've done it. And surprisingly, you might like it. But this one, you know, is really all about, I think, you know, childhood flavors and childhood memories. So one of the ingredients is ceniza de maíz, which is roasted corn,
yes,
right? Or corn ash, right?
Corn
which
ash.
is, it's like burnt, like the flavor of burnt tortilla or something like
Yes,
that. You can
yes.
think about that. It has limon, which would be lime for us, right? So it's green, not yellow. And it also has a sea salt. But really, really interesting. There's a spice from which I love from your part. You've brought back, you know, in the case, which is called pimienta gorda, and the pimienta gorda looks like a really big allspice, and it has that complex mix of flavors, but it's also spicy.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's got that heat. So, I mean, for me, I mean, you know, I taste this, and I'm going to taste it, and we can talk about it. You know, Mexican memories. Are these childhood flavors, or are these some things that, you know, people has as an adults? What is the connection to this set of flavors?
When we were experimenting with this salt, we realized that this chocolate had a special flavor, and
so this is Uranga from Chiapas.
Yes.
Okay.
And when Elisa tasted for the first time, she opened the her eyes like this and says, "Oh, this is really it's a background like a memory." And so she said, "What's the name of this?" "No, it doesn't have a name. It's only an experiment." "Mexican memories," she said, because it's the kind of memories like we here in Mexico when you don't have when the food is not ready. Sometimes when you arrive to your house and you are starving and you see a tortilla with some salt and that's it, and you make a taco from of tortilla and salt, and meanwhile they're finishing the food, but with that you can hanging on there. So that's the kind of remembers that we have when you taste this as a Mexican. So and the other the chocolate with chicatana ant and cardamom. It's because we wanted to make some different of all the chocolates with cardamom in the world. You know, there are a lot of chocolates with cardamom, and so in the international chocolate works, we realized that there were a lot of brands making this flavored chocolate. So we couldn't do the same thing because we wanted to make something like that, but different at the same time. So with this sea salt and the chicatana, and we make another flavor more complex that only the cardamom. And this is the most awarded chocolate that we have in the international chocolate awards.
The Chicatana ant is the most awarded chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Is the sea salt local? I mean, is it
Yes.
harvested in Mexico as well?
Yes. Yes. There's a company in Monterrey, in the north of Mexico. They make these salts. We are not experts in the salt, so they make a lot of gourmet salts, and they sell us these mixes.
Great. So we're heading into the last 10 minutes or so of today's live stream. What I want to do is take a real quick. Alejandro, what are we looking at here?
That's a pod infected with Monilia.
Okay, so I took this photo, and one of the reasons why I'm showing it, and let me change so we can get it big, is that Monilia is a disease not native to Mexico. It was probably introduced by workers coming up from Panama through Central America along the train lines, but the production in Mexico has been devastated over the course of the last 25 years or so by Monilia. And this is a badly infected pod. I mean, ideally, what would happen is that all of the seeds would be unused. However, you may end up with some of these seeds being used, which is unfortunate. We had an opportunity to go visit a collection center, and we saw those kinds of seeds being actually put into fermentation bins, and it was not ugly. It was ugly. It was not pretty. And Zoe actually called the fermentation pots gusanitos because they're actually worms growing in the fermentation piles, which she had never seen before, and I had certainly never seen before. But this will give you an idea. I mean, it's 17 pesos at the time, was just under $1 for cacao and baba delivered to the collection center. So somebody else is doing all the fermentation, somebody else is doing all the drying. Now, the prices are a little higher now, but when we look at exchange rates and inflation and things like that, it's not all that different from what we would expect. And this is an unusual photograph because what we have here is we have a use for cocoa pods that I had never seen before. So this is at the collection center for a company called Grupo Sicas, who was hired by the Tabasco government, and they were just doing very, very large scale nurseries of C1 plants, of Carmelo plants. What they're doing here is that when they open up the pods, they're very careful to open up the pods longitudinally and to pull the seeds out And when they get done, they scrape the insides of the pods out and then freeze them.
Yeah.
And these are sent where? To Mexico City?
Yes, it's a company. I don't know if it's Mexico City or Guadalajara, to an ice cream company. They put chocolate ice cream there.
And so they're serving chocolate ice cream in bowls, which are made from frozen cocoa pods,
Yes.
which on the one hand, I think is really genius. And the other hand, I'm going, this is the nutrition of the soil, which is being sent hundreds of thousands of miles away. Yeah. And we have to be much more careful about the way we fertilize to replace the nutrition which is associated with these pods. So I'm really, really torn about this, but I think it's just, really, really genius in terms of what's done. One of the things I think that's also unusual about Mexico, compared with Ecuador and Peru, especially, is that how prevalent the iconography of cocoa is in modern as well as his historical drawing. So this is a painting we saw at a restaurant one afternoon, I believe. But just, do you know anything about this artist or the history of this style of painting? Or is this typical of the way modern representations are of the art of cocoa in Mexico today?
Yes, here in Tabasco, there are a lot of artists painting cacaos in several ways and several styles. I don't know too much about this kind of art, but I can tell you that if you want a paint of cacaos, you can find here a lot of styles, a lot of size, a lot of paintings with this theme, with the cacao. With the cacao seeds, with the cacao pods, with the cacao tree, with the haciendas, or with chocolate, or with some tools related with cacao and chocolate. So we have a lot of, like I said before, a lot of tradition, a lot of culture around it.
And I wanted to end at least this part of the slide presentation with this picture. It's you and me. We're on the right. In the center are Zoe and Elisa. And this is actually the front entrance to, I don't know why I said actually, but this is the front entrance to Hacienda La Luz.
Yes.
And just a little bit of historical connection. People may have heard of the word comal, which is either a stone or metal plate that people cook on. Often you'll toast cocoa beans on them before you put them on a metate.
Yes.
But Comalcalco is the place from where comals come.
Yeah.
Is that right? If I'm remembering correctly?
Yes, correct.
All right. And so what I want to do really, really briefly is show this page on the Chocolate Life. So for every single one of the live streams, I create a post. And in that post, there are resources that you can follow up on. And one of the links on this page is a link to the Wolter Chocolates website. If you have an opportunity to go down to Tabasco and get a chance to go to Comalcalco, that a visit to Hacienda La Luz to see the gift store, to see the hacienda, to take a walk through the farm, to see the factory, to take a look at the old equipment and the new equipment is something that I certainly recommend. And one thing I'd like to offer up to people who may be watching this is perhaps there's an opportunity to do a Chocolate Life trip down to Villahermosa. To come, I mean, some of the greatest tacos you will ever have. I mean, just you have an uncle who owns a taqueria on the square in Comalcalco, and I have fond memories of eating tacos with you when I was there on one of the trips.
Maybe next festival, chocolate festival in November.
Are you going to be doing the Festival del Chocolate in 2022?
Yes.
Okay,
sure.
So everybody who's watching this, think about the weekend around Thanksgiving, right? End of November, right?
Yes.
And if you're interested in the opportunity or the possibility of being able to go on a trip to Villahermosa and just to learn all about cacao and chocolate in this area, we have some very, very special relationships with the Ministry of Tourism, and things like that, where we can perhaps run some. I mean, there's just a lot to do in that part of the world. As we head out today, Alejandro, is there anything you'd like to close with? Let
Well,
people know.
just only to invite all the people to visit us. We have a lot of things to show you, not only with chocolate, but with things that we make with cacao. It's all kind of pre-Hispanic beverages. And I think the chocolate festival in November it's a great opportunity to visit, to eat a lot of things that we have. Clay just in the Thanksgiving Day taste a mole with turkey, with mole, with chocolate. It's a thing that we make here, and it's a special thing.
I need to let people know just off that is that Alejandro is a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Oh yeah.
He also likes to celebrate an American style Thanksgiving, which is pretty unusual among Mexicans. And so when I was there once, he had an American style Thanksgiving, but in deference to me, they made a mole poblano with traditionally, which would have pava, which would have turkey in it. Rather than chicken, which was imported from China. Long history, as you might imagine, with those kinds of things. But Alejandro, I want to say thank you very much for joining us today. Looking forward to following up. If you're here and you have comments after the live stream ends, you can go and enter the comments here on TheChocolateLife.com down here in the comments section, or you can enter them in LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, wherever you happen to be watching. And with that, I want to say thank you to all of you, chocolate lovers of all flavors from around the world, for joining us here today on The Chocolate Life Live. And we're looking forward to having you back sometime in the very near future. Cheers, all.